New angle. It's a new angle. Because I've charged my phone and I think there's probably an thing there. So here we are. Oh, shit. Oh my god, this isn't gonna go well. The new angle is not working. I'm just gonna have to hold it on. Alright, chapter 6. The forest. Star was licking Rowan's cheeks and forehead with her rough, cool tongue. That siren is here, FYI. Rowan smiled. Stop it, Star. Leave me be, he mumbled. He rolled his head from side to side on the grass. He is babbling, someone said in disgust. The picture of Star slowly dissolved. Rowan opened his eyes and found himself staring into the serious face of Strong John. For a moment he hesitated. Then, with a wave of bitter disappointment, he realized where he was. Not in the home of the Bookshire Fields with Star, who loved him, but on the mountain with Strong John, who disliked him, Marley and Alun, who pitied him, and Brondon, Val, and Erlis, who despised him. He's babbling, Val repeated impatiently. By my life, how we are burdened by this weakling. Look at the sun, it must be nearly 11. John threw aside the damp cloth with which he had been bathing Rowan's face. He is awake now, he said bluntly, and weakling or not, he fought that cliff gallantly. Val the miller. He fought it to exhaustion. He stood up and walked away, arching his cramped back. Rowan lay still, looking up at the sky. His body felt heavy, but his head felt very light. There was a soft ringing in his ears. Val was right. The sun was high. He must have been lying here for a long time, sleeping, dreaming of home like a small child. His face began to burn, and he struggled to sit up. Easily, easily, boy Rowan, grinned Alun, kneeling down beside him and supporting his back. We must crawl before we can walk. Have this. He held a flask to Rowan's lips, and Rowan swallowed gratefully. When you are feeling better, Alun went on, glancing meaningfully at the others, we will move on into the forest. Here, he dragged Rowan's pack towards him. You can spend your time usefully by holding the map for us while we look at it once again. We have seen the way we must go, frowned Brondon. We do not need the map. Ah, youth, you must not forget that I am 3 years older than you, Brondon, smiled Alun, and my poor memory is failing fast. Rowan knew that Alun was giving him something to do while he rested, but he slid the map from his bag and unrolled it slowly. It would not hurt to study it again. His eyes travelled along the red-dotted line, past the sketched-in stream bed, the hole into which the water usually fell, the opening in the cliff itself, the entrance to the forest beside a high, pointed rock not far from where they now sat, the path through. Rowan blinked, and looked, and blinked again. He tried to speak and almost choked. Alun looked at him quickly and then glanced at the parchment. He exclaimed under his breath. Then, John, he shouted. John spun around and ran back towards them, while the other members of the party craned their necks to look. Rowan was pointing wordlessly at the map, at the place beside the beginning of the forest path, where once there had been a clear white space. There were 6 lines of black writing. In a low voice, Alun read the words aloud. Let arms be still and voices low, 1,000,000 eyes watch as you go. The silken door your pathway ends, their fire and light will be your friends. Then see yourself as others may, and catch noon's eye to clear your way. What nonsense is this? Demanded Val. Who has been playing the fool? No one has touched the map, Val, retorted Marley. The words have appeared since we last looked at it. That is impossible, said Brondon. She bent over the map, squinting at the words as though to find a clue as to how they had come there. It matters not a jot where it came from, cried Alun. The question is, what does it mean? Strong John cleared his throat. Whatever we are dealing with here, he said, it is certain that the words have not come to us by chance. They give us instructions and a warning. The words suggest we do not fling our arms about or speak loudly, Alun remarked. That is clear enough. I shall follow that advice to the letter. That may prove difficult for you, Alun, said Marley dryly. The words also mention noon. Strong John was unsmiling. I suggest we begin our forest journey as soon as we can. It will be noon in about an hour, by my reckoning. He held out a hand to Rowan and hauled him to his feet. Roll up the map and stick it through your belt for now, boy, he said roughly. My load is unbalanced, I find, and I need to carry your pack as well as my own to even the weight, if you do not object. He did not wait for an answer, but swung both bags onto his shoulders and began striding towards the pointed rock. The others hurried after him. Rowan, no longer weighed down by his pack on his back, found he was able to keep up quite easily despite his bruises. They paused at a pointed rock and peered between the first trees. Sunlight filtered through rustling leaves and lay in pools on the forest floor. There was a rough, winding path in front of them, soon lost to view behind the undergrowth. This looks pleasant enough, said Alun. Shall I lead this time? The gravity of the task may help me hold my tongue, as the verse commands. Stranger things have happened. Then lead by all means, grumbled Brondon. Any peace from your infernal chatter will be a blessing. They moved into the forest. Rowan noticed that all of them, whatever their feelings about the map's instructions, kept their arms close to their sides, and no one spoke. In a few minutes the path had twisted and turned so that they could no longer see the cliff top from which they had come. As they trudged deeper into the forest, the trees around them became bigger and closer together, tangled with vines and surrounded by straggling bushes. The light became dim, and the silence. Rowan, keeping close behind Marley and listening for Strong John's firm step behind him, thought that he had never experienced so silent a place. Where were the birds, and the crickets and lizards and other small creatures that usually inhabited woods like this? Then he heard it. A faint twittering sound was floating down the path from somewhere ahead of them. A large colony of small birds by the sound of it. Rowan was familiar with all the birds of Rin, but this sound was like nothing he had ever heard before. These little creatures must belong to a breed that did not stray into the valley. They would not be nesting at this time of year, but still he looked forward to seeing them fluttering and hopping around. His spirits lifted at the thought of it. The twittering grew louder and louder. Alun began to walk faster, as if he too was interested in what was ahead. Soon he had left Marley behind. She clicked her tongue and hurried to join him. Rowan, stretching his legs to keep up, tried to peer around Marley's shoulder as the path turned once more, and so he stumbled and nearly fell as she gasped and cannoned into Alun, standing still and almost invisible in the dimness. The cheeping sound was deafening now. Strong John grabbed Rowan's arm and steadied him, frowning as Val, Ellis, and Brondon bumped into him in their turn, and still Alun did not move. Alun, you blockhead, what game are you playing? Brondon barked. The twittering stopped abruptly, and a rustling, creeping, whispering sound took its place. Alun looked back at them, his face creamy pale in the dim light, but he did not answer, only moved his head very carefully from side to side. And then they saw what he had seen. On both sides of the narrow pathway, spiders. Thousands of them. Huge black velvety spiders as big as Strong John's hand, crawling over vast webs of white silk that draped the trees so thickly that the bark and leaves were hidden. Their eyes were shining, 1,000,000 eyes. Rowan's skin began to creep. They were going to have to walk between these crawling webs, the giant spiders listening for them, reaching out for them. Ugh, Rowan heard a strangled gasp from somewhere behind him. The spiders froze, and then began moving again, in the direction of the sound. Strong John reached over Rowan's shoulder and pushed gently at Marley as a signal to move on. She pushed Alun in her turn, and he began easing forward, making as little movement as possible. But they had only gone a few steps before again there was a shuddering groan behind them, and Val was pulling at Strong John's sleeve. "Ellis," she breathed, "he cannot." John, Rowan, Marley, and Alun turned incredulously. Beyond Val's worried face, they could see the massive form of Ellis. His clenched fists crossed over his chest. His face was gleaming with sweat. He was panting and trembling, and every now and then a low moan slipped from his lips. "Spiders," breathed his sister. "He cannot abide them." From a child he could not. At home, not a speck of dust or a dry leaf may lie in a dark corner in case a spider seeks its shelter. The smallest of them is terror to him, and these are beyond anything. "Ellis," whispered Strong John urgently. "Come, man, it is not far. They are not on the path. If we take care—" "No," the sound bubbled from the big man's lips. Abruptly he turned and pushed past Brondon, nearly toppling her off the path and into a web. He tottered back the way they had come, then he rounded the bend and they could see him no more. But they heard the sound of his feet, running out of the forest. "Go on," whispered Val, her voice fierce with worry and shame. "Go on, he will not return." Silently they obeyed. After a few minutes, the twittering sound rose up again. The spiders were communicating once more, slowly rubbing their great ribbed back legs together like poisonous crickets. The noise was strange and horrible to hear now that they knew where it was coming from. Rowan crept along behind Marley, breathing in shallow gasps, making himself as thin and small as possible, trying not to look from side to side, trying not to think of the sticky white curtains that swathed the trees, the huge crawling spiders and their million eyes so close. To allow himself to speak or cry out would be to attract the spiders again. To touch one of the strands of thick white silk would be to call them, running to him. He had seen enough insects caught in webs to know that. He must go on walking and force down the fear. He must think, remember the last lines of the verse. "The silken door your pathway ends. Their fire and light will be your friends. Then see yourself as others may, and catch noon's eye to clear your way." The silken door, noon's eye. It must be nearly noon now. He jumped nervously as Strong John's hand touched his shoulder. He looked up. They were in a small clearing. Before them was the silken door. It was a huge gleaming white web, so thick that you could not see through it. Its surface was scattered with twigs and leaves caught in its sticky threads. It stretched from one side of the path to the other, blocking it completely, and all around it crouched hundreds of spiders, waiting. Alun turned carefully to face his companions. "What now?" he mouthed. "The verse," breathed Marley. "The verse has no meaning," hissed Brondon. "Cut through the web and be done with it, Alun. Or if you do not have the stomach for it, let me through and I will do it myself." The spiders rustled and moved in the web. "No," whispered Strong John. "Not while the spiders hang about the silk in such numbers. As soon as we touch the web, they will be upon us. We cannot risk that." "They may be quite harmless," said Val. "Or they may not," answered Marley. "As John says, we cannot risk it. We have already lost one member of our party." "What then?" Brondon was angry. Ellis's flight from the forest had been a great shock to her. How could such a big, strong man have such a childish weakness? She was baffled by it. She took care not to look at Val. How shamed she must feel. The light changed. From directly above them, a ray of sun penetrated the gloom of the forest, bathing them in warmth. The spiders around them began to chitter and creep back. They do not like the light, Rowan breathed. The verse said it. Fire and light will be our friends, it said. Fire, whispered Brondon. Throw a torch at the web. Ellis was carrying the torches, said Val dully. Alun felt in his pockets and pulled out his tinderbox. Who has something that will burn easily, even for a brief time? Do not make any sudden movements, warned Strong John, his eyes on the spiders. Marley slipped her hand into her jacket pocket. She pulled out her compass, a comb, a mirror, and a handkerchief. She held the handkerchief out to Alun. He knotted it loosely and struck flame from the tinderbox. Ready, he warned. Then he lit the cloth and threw it straight at the center of the white barrier. The silk sizzled and shrank as the handkerchief blazed. The spiders shrieked and scattered, but only for a moment. Within seconds, before even one of the party had taken more than a step forward, the flame had died down and the spiders were back. A hole gaped in its web now. But amid the smoke still rising from its blackened edges, hundreds of spiders were crawling, and more were on their way. They are spinning, gasped Alun. Already they are mending the hole. We must drive them back, Strong John looked around desperately. There must be a way. They do not like the light, Rowan said again. They do not like the sun. We have no materials to make a torch here, Rowan, Marley answered. We have nothing that will make a light that will burn long enough to hold the creatures at bay. But Strong John had grasped Rowan's shoulder. Rowan, the verse. Say the last lines again. Rowan repeated in a low voice. Then see yourself as others may, and catch noon's eye to clear your way. A thought struck him, and he looked quickly at Marley. Noon's eye, the sun. Alun squinted upwards at the glare. But the sun is falling here, where we stand. The web is in shadow. What is it, Rowan? Asked Marley, staring at him. Why are you looking at me? The mirror, whispered Rowan. Your mirror. In a mirror you see yourself as others may, and the sun. Yes, Strong John clenched his fists. But quickly, before the light goes. We have been here too long. Marley handed over the mirror. John held it in front of him, twisting it until it threw bright, reflected sunlight onto the web. The spiders scuttled away from their work around the hole, shrinking back into the shadows. Give it to me, cried Val. She snatched the mirror from John's hand. She jiggled the glass, called the sun, and dazzling light danced round and round on the silken door. She pushed Brondon ahead of her. Go, she shrieked. Go now. Rowan ran with the others, his eyes fixed on the hole in the web, and the glimpses of green beyond. Already the dancing light was fading. He reached the net and leaped through, while a million eyes glowed angrily in the shadows, cheated of their prey. Ooh, Spideys. Spideys. It sounds like Harry Potter. Very Spidey-esque. This is a rip-off Harry Potter.